All right, moving on first, we look at photosynthesis. Again, I sent a message. If you have any questions, feel free to put on your audio and ask your question, or in the chat. I prefer you use the audio because the chat is more difficult for me to get access to when I'm sharing the screen like this. So we're looking at photosynthesis. There are different definitions that you may come up with for photosynthesis. And one of the good definition to have is that it is a conversion of solar energy into chemical energy. Some of you may define photosynthesis as the way in which a plant will make its food. That's correct. Photo means light, and synthesis means you're putting things together. So in photosynthesis, you're using light, which is referring to photo here, and you're putting things together, and you're putting your carbon dioxide and your water together to form food. So there are two stages of photosynthesis, and this is something that may be new to you. For those who will be studying biology, you will go into this as well. So there are two stages of photosynthesis. One of those stages, we call that light reaction. So as the name suggests, light reaction occurs in the presence of light. You need light. It doesn't necessarily mean sunlight. You can provide artificial light to allow the plants to undergo photosynthesis. If you were following the lecture on a non-conventional method, we looked at grow box. And in the grow box, it's just a simple box. And in that box, you provide artificial light that have similar wavelength to sunlight. And that will allow the plants to undergo photosynthesis. So in light reaction, the light energy is captured by chlorophyll. And then the energy from the light will cause the water molecules to split. And that is what is shown on the right-hand side there. You see that we have, don't pay attention to the numbers. They might be confusing, but you have water molecules. You have two water molecules. It could be one water molecule. And when light energy hits that water molecule, it splits it. It splits it into hydrogen. And then you see oxygen. What happens to that oxygen at this moment is that that oxygen will come out of the plant. So you would have known that when plants undergo photosynthesis, they release oxygen. So the question you should be able to answer if you're asked, the question might be that where the oxygen is coming from. Where is the oxygen coming from during photosynthesis? And the answer is, it is coming from water. The water will split because of the solar energy, the light energy, into hydrogen and oxygen. So I think that's pretty straightforward. If you have any questions again, feel free to ask. And the second section, dark reaction. Dark reaction doesn't mean it happens in the dark. But why they name it dark reaction is that it doesn't need light. Dark reaction can happen when there is light or when there is no light. So what happens in dark reaction is that the hydrogen that we looked at in the previous slide here, the hydrogen that came from the water, that hydrogen would combine with carbon dioxide and it would form sugars. The sugar that you know about that is formed is glucose. So you have an overall reaction of photosynthesis on the right. You have carbon dioxide. You should be able to rewrite this equation. The Boyd equation would be carbon dioxide plus water. And where the arrow is, you would put chlorophyll, the condition of chlorophyll and sunlight, and it will form glucose and oxygen. And again, as I said, you need to know how to write the chemical equation, which will be 6CO2, 6H2O, and the glucose and the oxygen. You should be able to write the chemical and the name and the words for it. All right, what we have now is the limiting factors. These are factors that prevent or speed up the rate of photosynthesis. They slow down the rate of photosynthesis or they speed up the rate of photosynthesis. So one of the limiting factors is called light intensity. Light intensity has to do with how much radiation or how much light is being produced. So if you have more light, it means that photosynthesis will be faster. If you have less light, photosynthesis will be slower. Think of solar panels, for example, that many persons have. If you have more sunlight, the solar panel will charge the lights, the battery, faster. But if you have less sunlight, well, then the solar panel will charge the batteries slower. So similarly, more light, faster photosynthesis, less light, slower photosynthesis. The temperature. Well, if you have very low temperature, the reaction will be slow. And on the other hand, if you have a high temperature, if the temperature is too high, extreme temperatures, photosynthesis will also be slowed down. And the reason for this is because the whole process of photosynthesis, it is controlled by enzymes. And you should have learned about enzymes in grade 9. Enzymes, if the temperature is too high, the enzymes will not function properly. Same thing in human bodies. If our body temperature is up too high, well then the bodily function will not work properly because the enzymes that are controlling plenty of these reactions will not function. So high temperature will slow down the rate of photosynthesis. Very low temperature will slow down the rate of photosynthesis. So there is a range of temperature that the plant would require in order for it to undergo photosynthesis properly. Water availability. If you don't have much water, photosynthesis can't happen properly as well. And carbon dioxide concentration, and leaf anatomy and distribution of chlorophyll. The leaf anatomy has to do with how the leaves are structured. Some of the plants, the way in which the leaves are structured, almost all of the leaf can have access to sunlight because of the way in which it is structured. But some of the leaves, they might have one layer of leaf at the top, another layer of leaf at the bottom. So the top layer of the leaf is blocking sunlight from getting onto the lower layer. So the leaf anatomy is going to affect how fast photosynthesis will happen or how slow it will happen. And the distribution of chlorophyll, how much chlorophyll is present. Important for you to know also is what will happen to the products of photosynthesis. So the sugars that are made in photosynthesis, they are used for, one of the main processes they're used for is for respiration. And respiration is where the energy is released to allow growth and cell division to happen. And then we have for making starch. So the excess amount of sugar that is formed will go and be stored in storage organs. So when we have, for example, a drought, or when the plant is not undergoing photosynthesis during the night, it will use the stored energy, creating proteins and lipids, which are essential for growth and formation of new cells. So the glucose that is formed, the sugar that is formed, they will also be used to make proteins and lipids, and these are things that cause cells to grow. When new parts of the plant are being made, they need proteins and lipids. And also for the development of stems, leaves, and the reproductive structures. So all of these are important functions of the plant that rely on the production of sugars. So that's why photosynthesis is such an important step in the life of the plant. If you have any question at this moment, please go ahead and you can ask those questions. All right, next, respiration. Can someone define respiration in their own words? Can someone unmute their mic and tell us in their own words what is respiration? Yes, Aaron, please unmute your mic.
Sorry, you can hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Respiration is the oxidation or the burning of food nutrients so that we can have energy.
All right, Aaron, that's correct. So Aaron is saying is the oxidation of the food so that we can get energy. So that's correct what he's saying. So respiration, as I have here on the slide, it is the oxidation of organic substances. And the organic substances is referring here to glucose. So exactly what Aaron was saying just now, it is the oxidation of organic substances which is your food, in living cells to produce energy. So this is pretty straightforward. You should be aware of the chemical and the Boyd equation for respiration. It's going to be in your notes, so I'm not going to go through it. But if you look on the right-hand side of the equation, you would see ATP. Does anyone know what ATP stands for? You can unmute your mic again and provide an answer. Does anyone know what ATP stands for? All right, no one is answering. So ATP means adenosine triphosphate. It is an abbreviation for adenosine triphosphate. So let's look back at, keep looking at this chemical equation that you have here. We have sugar and oxygen. So the oxygen is like burning the sugar. The sugar has plenty energy within it. And the oxygen is we're gonna say burn, a simple term. The oxygen is gonna burn the sugar. So the energy from the sugar will be released. But it makes no sense if the energy is just released and it enters into the atmosphere, or it just comes out of the plant. Or if us humans, when we undergo respiration, it makes no sense if all the energy comes out through exhalation and so forth. So the energy will go onto this molecule called ATP, and the energy will be stored on that ATP. So when we need energy, that ATP will break down and the ATP will provide the energy. The carbon dioxide and the water during respiration, that's given off. For the plant, some of the carbon dioxide will be reused for photosynthesis. Some of the water will also be reused for photosynthesis. But most of it will be, a lot of it will be given off through the stomata of the leaves. So those are not as important as the ATP. The ATP is extremely important in storing the energy. And when the plant needs growth, when it needs to do any activity, produce flower and so forth, and it needs energy, it gets it from its ATP. And same thing for us human beings. When we need energy, we would get it from ATP. All right, so moving on. Energy produced is used for growth. The energy produced during respiration is stored on ATP, and it would be used for growth, for movement, transport of substances. Transport of substances, active transport is a way in which substances can move. You would have looked at diffusion before. I'm quite sure you were aware of diffusion. Diffusion simply means a movement of molecules, movement of chemicals from where you have plenty to where you have less, from high concentration to low concentration. But active transport is the opposite. Active transport is saying that you have where you is a movement of substances from where you have low concentration to where you have high concentration. So imagine a ball moving up a hill. You need energy for that ball to move up the hill. So the energy is provided by respiration. So the rate of respiration is also affected by several factors. For example, condition of the protoplasm, the water content. Protoplasm is everything within the cell wall. The water content is important because most, I should say all, chemical reactions rely on water. Temperature, also, the process of respiration is controlled by enzymes. So if the temperature is too high, as I mentioned before, the enzymes will not be able to function and respiration will not take place properly. So high temperature can kill the plants. Oxygen concentration, and this may vary. The amount of oxygen present will vary depend on the elevation. So as you go up, let's say you go up a very high mountain, you will have less oxygen present there. So the plants that are there at a high elevation have less oxygen compared to the plants that are at a lower elevation. Stored food, the amount of stored food, if the plant have a lot of stored food, well then if it is not making a lot of food during photosynthesis, it can use its stored food to undergo respiration. Any questions up to this point? Please feel free to message in the chat or use your microphone. It would be good if we be more, if students participate more. All right, moving on to transpiration. Okay, yes, moving on to transpiration. I see no questions. Good. So in simple terms, transpiration refers to the evaporation of water from the leaves of the plant. Very simple. If you were to actually find the transpiration, this is simple enough to give as an answer. So water usually leaves or is removed from the plant through the stomata. And what type of water are we talking about? Because we've been talking about water already. Respiration produces water. So some of that water will be released through the stomata. Evaporating water can cause a cooling effect. It means that the water will cause the plant to cool down. When the temperature is hot, the water will reduce the temperature of the plant. For example, when you place alcohol, if you take alcohol and place it on your skin, you would have a cooling effect. Your skin will feel cool. And the reason for that is that the alcohol is evaporating very fast. And as the alcohol evaporates from your skin, it is taking the energy, the heat energy from your skin. And when it is doing that, it's causing your body to feel cooler. So as the water evaporates from the leaf, the water is removing the heat from the plant and causing the plant to lower its temperature or feel cooler. So that's why when we sweat, that's one of the reasons why we sweat. We sweat to reduce our body temperature. Our system, we notice that our temperature is going high, so it produces sweat, and the sweat evaporates from our skin, and it causes us to feel cool. Same thing happens in the plant. The transpiration will cool the plant, and that will help the enzymes to function more effectively. Transpiration allows continuous water movement, and this diagram is explaining it. We do not have to go into a lot of detail at this moment, but the biology students especially will have to understand this in more details. So the water is taken in by the root hairs, and you can see that at number 2 in the diagram. That's referring to the root hair. From the root hair, the water will move into the xylem vessels. The root have xylem vessels, and the water moves into the xylem vessels. Then the water will move up through the xylem vessels in the stem, and it will move towards the leaves. And then when it reaches the leaves, some of the water, or a lot of the water actually, depending on the environmental condition, a lot of the water in the leaf will be used for photosynthesis. But what happens to the excess water? The stomata opens, and the stomata will let that water to come out. So that's transpiration occurring. The water, the importance of water in the plants. Water is needed. I have a gift from Zoom. The water is needed to keep the cell turgid. So you see 2 cells there. One cell is turgid on the left, and the other is flaccid. The opposite is flaccid. If you don't have enough water, the cell becomes flaccid. If you have lots of water, the cell is turgid. It swells. If transpiration is faster than water absorption, wilting occurs. So if you do not add a lot of water to the plant, and the plant is losing a lot of water because of transpiration, you would see the leaves will fall down, like you see in the diagram there. And right now, how we have dry season, if you have pepper plants and so forth in your yard, and you do not water your plants, you will see that the leaves will be wilting. So temporary wilting is reversible. You add water to the leaves, to the plant, you would see that the leaves will become turgid again. Turgid means that they stand upright. If they're flaccid, if the cells are flaccid, well, then the plant will wilt. So how are you seeing the plant there wilting? It means that the cells are flaccid. The cells lost a lot of water. So permanent wilting, if the plant just remain wilted and water is not applied to the plant, well, then the plant will die. Repeated temporary wilting will cause reduced cell division. This plant will not divided cells. And cell division is important for the formation of new parts, for formation of stem, for the growth of the plant generally. So the plant will not be growing properly. Poor development of tissues. Well, if the cells do not divide, new tissues cannot form. And stunted growth. The plant will not grow properly, all because of a lack of water in the plant, because water is so important for almost all chemical reactions. It is important for photosynthesis. It is important also for respiration. Respiration may not be using water as part of its reactants, but respiration occurs in a liquid environment because the cell has mostly water in it. You'll also have poor yields. What does poor yields mean? It means that instead of getting, let's say, 1 kilogram of produce from a particular plant, you will have 0.5 kilogram. So transpiration is important for proper yields. If there's any question at this moment, please ensure that you send it in the chat or through your microphone. Moving on, translocation. I think we have a 40-minute time limit. I'm not sure how much minutes to finish. Translocation, so this refers to the movement of organic and inorganic substances from one part of the plant to another. So phloem tubes are responsible for the movement of manufactured food. So by now you should know that most of the photosynthesis happens in the leaves. Some photosynthesis happen in some stems. Some stems that are young, you see that the stem is green. Well, it means that the stem is undergoing photosynthesis. So translocation means that the food moves from where it is made to where it is needed and where it can be stored. For example, it's made in the leaf. The root might need some of the food, so the food is translocated to the phloem and goes to the root, and the root used up that food or probably store the excess food. So that's pretty straightforward. We have other physiological function of some plants, photoperiodism. Very simply, it refers to the response of plants to changes in the length of daylight. So depending on the length of the day, the plant behave differently. So some plants, we call them short day plants. And these plants produce flower when the day length is short. And if you should be aware that in wintertime or coming on to wintertime in temperate countries, you would notice that the days are shorter and the nights are longer. So these short day plants will react to the length of the day. For example, we have pigeon peas as being a short day plant. And then we have long day plants. These produce flowers when the day length is long. So coming on to summer and around summertime in temperate countries, these plants will flower when the days are very long. Example we have here, radish and beetroot. So this is one of the reasons why we can't really grow some of these crops in Guyana. Some of them we can grow, pigeon peas and so forth, but some of them will be very difficult for us to grow because of photoperiodism. However, we can create artificial environment and cause these plants to produce their flower. We can provide artificial light to lengthen the day, or we can even provide darkness to shorten the day. But that's not the only reason why plants may flower. The other reasons might be the climatic condition, temperature, and so forth. So we also have the neutral plants, and these are mostly plants that we have in the tropical regions and Guyana and so forth. They produce flower all year long, so it doesn't matter on the length and the length of the day or the duration of the night. For example, we have carrot, we have tomato, and we have okra. The other important concept that you need to understand is called phototropism. And this is the last one, I believe. This is the last of the physiological function that we will look at this morning. So phototropism refers to the growth of plants in response to the stimulus of light. So just look at the diagram that we have here. So the auxins would accumulate on the sides of the root and shoot farther away from light. So you would look at the diagram, you see that there's an arrow there showing where the light is. So if the light is coming on the right-hand side, the auxins is gonna move away from the light and they will accumulate on the opposite side of the light. So what happens next is interesting, is that auxins speed up the growth in the shoot. So wherever you have plenty of the auxins, that location will grow faster. And the area close to the light, where we have less auxins, that area will go slow. So that will cause an uneven growth of the shoot. And that unevenness is what will cause the plant to go towards the sunlight. Again, when you expose the plant to unilateral light, meaning that the light is coming from one direction only, then the auxins are going to move away from the light in the shoot. And wherever you have plenty of the auxins, that area is going to go very quickly. And because that area is going quickly, the opposite side, which is closer to the light, have less auxins, and that area is going to go slowly. So the shoot will go towards the sunlight. The opposite will happen in roots, but I'm not going to look at that here. All right, so that brings us to the end of this morning's session. If you have any question, I would suggest that you use your microphone and ask those questions right now. I would remain for a minute or so and wait for any of the questions that you may have. All right, so I assume no questions. So what I'm going to close off this live session. And what you would expect is that shortly I'll be posting the notes that relates to whatever was being discussed today. And also on Thursday, you would have a quiz, and the quiz will be based on the topics that we looked at today. It is expected that you read the notes clearly. You read through the notes and then attempt the quiz, because some of you don't read the notes and you attempt the quiz and you have plenty of the answers incorrect. No, you do not have to copy the notes. It's about 2.5 pages of notes. I don't want you to copy the notes. I will provide the slide. I'll convert the slide into a PDF, and you can make short notes for your own self. You should learn to summarize the notes to help you remember and understand the work. As I said before, you should have somewhere in your computer, somewhere in your phone where you're saving these notes so you can refer to them later on. It's too much of work to copy all of the notes that I'm going to send. And for all the subjects that you have, it's too much of notes that you have to copy. So just copy, make your own notes, 2 or 3 lines. You probably want to define each one of them. So you may want to write photosynthesis, define photosynthesis, respiration, define it, write the equation for photosynthesis, write the equation for respiration, write what is photoperiodism, then state that you have 2 types of photoperiodism. You have 3 types: short day plants, long day plants, and so forth. So don't copy every single thing that I send. I'm leaving it up to you as responsible students to copy or to make notes on your own and use those notes to help you study. For those who can print, you can print out the notes and keep a copy of the notes, or just secure it somewhere safe on your computer or so forth. Plenty of these notes were made using your revision guide that some of you copied, and also a lot of these notes were copied. Yes, someone said you can print it. Yes, you can print it. And some of the notes were made using Macmillan series book, CSEC Agricultural Science. So you can refer to those books for further information as well. All right, I don't want to take up more of your time here. So I'm going to send the notes as soon as I go off here. Until next time, I wish you all the best in all of your studies and stay safe during this pandemic. All right. Later, everyone. I'm going to end this meeting now.